When we think of long-running anime, one that always gets brought up is One Piece, and with good reason. It is an exceptional series with tremendous world building and an overarching plot that manages to justify its length. I think One Piece is fantastic. However, I've noticed something. One Piece is very hard to get into and very easy to drop. While I've been reading it, I've had to take a couple breaks because I just wasn't feeling it. And I know I'm not alone. Here are a couple clips of other people talking about their experience with One Piece.
Once you get to this crocodile arc and he scraps crocodile, it gets hard. And I was like, gang.
Yeah.
And I did watch him scrap him and it was hard. And I was like, cool. And then that arc ended and they started the brand new arc and it was dead again.
Yeah, I believe that.
For like another 50. And I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah,
I've waited so long. I can't do it anymore. So I just locked it.
I haven't continued past Alabasta is because Alabasta was so, like, right before Alabasta, I think it's Chopper's thing, and I was like, man, like, fuck this snow area, like, I don't want to be here, go back to Arlong Park, and then, like, Chopper's thing, like, tricked me into loving it. Like, by the end, I was hyped about it. Then you get to Alabasta, and I'm like, fuck this sand place, bring me back to the snow area.
Notably, these clips are referring to the anime, which has a much different pacing to the manga, which is what I've been reading. However, I actually think these assessments can be made about the manga as well. One Piece has several moments where readers can very easily drop off, and it's not because these parts are bad. They're not. It's still One Piece, so it's all still great. But how can these moments be lackluster, but the rest of it be good? Well, join me as I delve into the intricacies of the One Piece plot outline. Before we start, I just want to get one thing out of the way. I've only read the One Piece manga up to chapter 801, so this video is made with the context of the manga pacing, which, as I said earlier, is very different to the anime pacing. And since I've only read up to the end of the Dressrosa arc, I don't know anything that happens after. So if I miss talking about something that happens in Wano, I literally don't know. I haven't gotten that far. First, I have to answer the question of what a plot outline is. A plot outline is a way to map out the plots of a story. You have definitely seen this chart in elementary school before, and if you haven't, it is very simple to understand. You start with the introduction, where things are pretty slow. Then you go into the rising action, where things get progressively more exciting until you get to the climax, which is the most exciting part of the story, filled with the most action. After the climax, we get the falling action, where we wrap up any loose threads before finally getting the conclusion, which is the end. Now, Oda, the author of One Piece, has mastered this plot outline, and every part of it is exceptional in the story. There are large explosive climaxes and great build-ups to them all throughout. One Piece follows this plot outline for the whole story. It has an introduction and a climax, which we don't know what that is yet, but I'm sure it will have one. But this plot outline isn't just a way to map One Piece as a whole. It is also a way to map the different parts of One Piece, which One Piece is split up into two different kinds of chunks: arcs and sagas. Arcs are dependent on where the Straw Hats are currently located. Little Garden takes place on an island called Little Garden, and Drum Island takes place on an island called Drum Island. Both of these arcs have individual plot outlines, with the big fight at the end serving as the climax, and the ending serving as a conclusion to the little story being told on the island. But both Little Garden and Drum Island are part of what is known as the Alabasta Saga. The sagas in One Piece don't have as clean of a naming convention as the arcs do. Sometimes the sagas are named after an arc that takes place in it, like there being a Alabasta arc in the Alabasta Saga, but other times the sagas are named after something completely else, like the Summit War Saga being named after the Summit War that takes place within it. Sagas are made up of arcs. Sometimes there are multiple arcs within a saga, and sometimes it's Wano. The sagas themselves also have individual plot outlines as well. This is where we can identify the issue I was talking about earlier. Let's look at one of the best sagas in all of One Piece, the Summit War Saga. It is made up of Sabaody Archipelago, Amazon Lily, Impel Down, Marineford, and the post-war arc. Each one has its own plot outline, but if we map it as a saga outline, Sabaody is the introduction, Amazon Lily and Impel Down become the rising action, with Marineford becoming the climax, and then the post-war arc serves as the conclusion. It is a very clean way to do things. In this saga, the action does not stop. Impel Down rolls right into Marineford, and Marineford is all gas. Sure, Marineford has an introduction itself, but all it sets up is where we are at and who is about to be involved in this massive fight. It never for a second feels like the action has taken a break once you hit Impel Down. The action does slow down when Amazon Lily starts, but that's at the start of the rising action where the energy should be low anyway. And the ending of Sabaody was super high in energy and had a massive conclusion, so slowing down the action once Amazon Lily starts is a nice breather, but it isn't enough to grind the momentum of the story to a halt. Now, let's look at Dressrosa. The Dressrosa saga is made up of Punk Hazard and the Dressrosa arcs. The Punk Hazard arc, as well as part of the Dressrosa arc, make up the introduction of the Dressrosa saga. The rising action of the entire saga matches up with the rising action of the Dressrosa arc. So since Punk Hazard is doing nothing but setting up the Dressrosa saga, once we get to the Dressrosa arc and we are still introing the saga, it feels like Punk Hazard didn't accomplish much, and it also makes the Dressrosa arc feel slow to start. And it especially doesn't help that the Dressrosa arc is slow to get started in the first place. This is because of the Corrida Coliseum. The Coliseum is a huge tournament featuring a ton of characters duking it out to win the Mera Mera no Mi. Yes, I am one of those One Piece fans. There are 32 named characters that we follow in this fight, and we have met 3 of them previously, one of them being Luffy. So that means that there are 29 named characters that we get introduced to, which is absurd. Why should you, the reader, care about all of these characters that you just met? Well, the answer is because they will be important later. Because at the end of the saga, all of these characters will come back and help the Straw Hats fight off Doflamingo and his officers. This is one of the things that I love about Oda as an author. He always pays off the characters he creates and is able to make any one of them into a fan favorite. I couldn't give 2 shits about Sai when he got introduced in the Coliseum. But my favorite part of Dressrosa is when Sai and Baby 5, a villain, join forces to fight Lao Ji, and we get the amazing narration of 2 officers fall. Lao Ji into a crevice, Baby 5 in love. I love this moment, but it can only happen if Sai is set up in the Coliseum. But getting to this moment takes a lot of trust. You have to believe that Oda is going to do something important with all of these characters you just met. And thankfully, he does accomplish that at the end of 100 chapters. The climax of Dressrosa is great, and is the reason why a lot of people, myself included, love the arc. But because of how lackluster Punk Hazard and the beginning of the arc is, it can be easy to drop the series before getting to this point. There are plenty of other parts of the story that are like this as well, like the beginning of Skypiea, where after coming off Jaya, which doesn't have a big climax, you are barraged by a lot of exposition explaining the Sky Islands. There isn't a main villain or a big fight scene in sight, but once Skypiea gets going, it's pretty good, but I did take a hiatus from the series shortly after getting to Skypiea. Another moment is Thriller Bark, which doesn't have a lot of weight on the actual plot, but does feature the best Straw Hat backstory in the whole series, and of course, we can't forget that nothing happens at the end of this arc as well. So the ending is great, but to get there, you have to read about Gecko Moria. Yay. And I'll admit, if it wasn't for Perona, I might not hold this arc in as high of a regard. So, that's why I think One Piece is so hard to get into for some people. These moments where we're setting up important things that will be paid off later are moments where people could easily drop off. But these moments are important because they lead into the climax and help make it a better story. But why is this a problem exclusive to One Piece? There are plenty of other long-running shonens. Why is One Piece the one that's so easy to drop? It's because One Piece is one large story with a lot of plot threads that expand throughout the entirety of the series. like the poneglyphs, the mystery of the Will of D, and whatever the hell the One Piece is. So, because of this, One Piece feels like one large ongoing story instead of a bunch of smaller stories all strung together. But because One Piece is split into arcs and sagas, it is a bunch of small stories strung together. And this is where the problem lies. We don't find any hard starts and stops. We only find pauses. And this is where some people can get lost in the shuffle. I don't think this is a bad thing, though. Oda is a tremendous writer, and he understands how to write a narrative. It's not his fault that lore dumps aren't exciting, but it does take a lot of trust on the reader's part to get through these lulls, and in early parts like Skypiea, that trust might not be built up. So, that's my theory as to why One Piece is so hard to get into. Let me know what you thought down in the comments, leave a like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and as always, sayonara.